xlearntechnow. On this video, guys, let me show you how to disassemble the Lenovo IdeaPad 3. The first thing that you have to do to start is to remove all the screws for the cover. Once you remove the screws, you should be able to rotate the laptop to take out all the screws. Make sure you don't lose them and put it aside. After that, you have to get the guitar pick tool, slide over between the chassis and the cover to be able to separate them. Make sure you slide it over all around the laptop. After that, you should be able to leave the cover to be able to access all the different components like the SSD, the fan, the memory RAM, CPU, GPU, memory RAM, battery, SATA hard drive, and the CMOS battery, and the speakers. Let me remove this thermal paste cover here for you to see all the different components are on the laptop. The storage, the wireless card, the fan, the memory RAM, the CPU, GPU, the memory RAM chipsets, the battery, and the SATA hard drive compartment. First thing that you have to do will be to remove the battery connector, and after that you should be able to start removing the different screws that goes around. We have about 5 screws for the battery. Once we complete that, you should be able to see the specs for the battery. And now let's remove the cover for the SSD storage. Once you remove the screw, you should be able to take it out, just in case you wanted to upgrade it. If you see so far, you have a space to put the bigger one in there, like the Samsungs or the Corsairs or whatever brand you like. After that, it's time to remove the screw for the wireless card and then take it out. After that, it's time to remove the memory RAM. The only thing that you have to do is slide over the metal blockers and slide the memory RAM. In there you have a 4 gigs on one slot. The other 4 gigs are next to it on the small chipsets with a white line around it. That's the flex for the keyboard. Most of the time is that bigger one in most of the computers or most of the laptops. It's like over the touchpad or mouse. That's the CMOS battery or the BIOS battery, the ones that keep the date and the time current even if the laptop lost power. That small flex is the one that comes from the small board that is on the other side. We're gonna see after. Make sure to leave over the plastic lockers always with all these flexes. That's for the screen and the camera. That connector is for the fan. We have to slide it over carefully, don't break it. It's a little hard to take it out, but little by little, you got it. To be able to pull out the fan, you have to remove the screws that goes around. Make sure you remove the cable from the wireless card. Go into the antennas on top of the screen. You should be able to remove the screws that are holding the fan. Once you remove the screws, you should be able to lift the fan. In here you could see the design of the fan, or if you have any question you could take a closer look of the connector too, just in case that you need to get a new one in the future. Now it's time to remove the screw from the CPU and GPU. Make sure that whenever you put it back, it's like very necessary to apply thermal paste. Remove the old thermal paste and apply the new one. On this case, we're not doing it, but I highly recommend doing it. And whenever you put it back, you have to put it on orders number. The actual heatsink has a small number that you have to follow from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, and then from 3 to 4 to screw it back in. Now it's time for you guys to remove all the screws that are holding the motherboard. One important thing that I would tell you guys that be careful if you guys gonna remove the Lenovo sticker that is on top of one of the screws that are holding the motherboard, because if you guys remove it, you guys will break the warranty. This laptop comes with a 1 year Lenovo warranty, so double check on their website to see if your computer is out of warranty already. If it's in warranty, go ahead and contact Lenovo and have them fix it for you. That's the one that I'm telling you guys. If you break that sticker, your warranty will be voided. Now let's go ahead and remove the motherboard. You guys could have a closer look and a better idea how the little chipset look for the RAM. In there you could see the different ports that the motherboard has, like the USB, HDMI, and DC port. And remember, on the other side, you have another little board that I will show you guys soon. Now it's time to remove the screws that are holding the little board on the left side. Go ahead and leave the metal bracket. You have to use a plastic lifter because it gets like a little stronger. And then once you lift that bracket from the screen, you should be able to lift your little board. And there is a connector for the speaker that you have to remove, and the flex is attached to it. Now let's remove the two screws that are holding the other bracket for the screen. Once you remove those two screws, we should be able to lift the bracket for the screen. Once we lift it, we should be able to bring the below part of it and slide it out to separate it from the screen. Go ahead and take a look of the connector that are coming from the monitor and the brackets. Now now it's time to put the chassis back with the screen. Make sure you slide it in and then go ahead and put the connectors. Make sure they align with the chassis. And after that, let's go ahead and put the little board and align it correctly. And go ahead and bring down the brackets coming from the screen. Always be careful, don't break the bracket, don't break the chassis, or don't break the screen or any other component from the computer. Now it's time to put the screws back in, the one that are holding the brackets and the little board. Let's continue putting the other screws. Let's leave a little bit of connectors so we could put the motherboard back in place after. It's very important that you guys put the screws correctly and make sure you guys don't miss any. This is a great time to put the motherboard correctly. Make sure you guys start lifting all the fluxes, all the cables, and all the connectors, and put it on top of the actual motherboard. So always follow around it to make sure there is no cables or connector under, because if you start putting the screws, you're gonna block them. Go ahead and put the screws back in place for the motherboard. Remember the little triangle that is next to the hole, that's where you have to put the screws on. That's the warranty screw one. Remember, you guys damage that little sticker on top, your warranty is void. Feel free to reapply the thermal paste on the CPU or GPU chipset after removing the heatsink. Feel free to do it. I won't do it on this video. Go ahead and screw back all the screws from 1 to 4. Remember, the 1 is in diagonal and the 3 and 4 are in diagonal position. Make sure you guys do it the correct way. After that, go ahead and put back the little flex. Once you slide in the connector, You should be able to lock it down with the little plastic on top. Go ahead and put the fan back in place. You have some screws that goes around it and a little connector that goes into the motherboard. These are the cables for the wireless antennas that are on the screen. They go on top of the screen. This is the speaker connector. Let's put it back on the little board. Let's put back the screw on the Wi-Fi card to lock it down. And after that, you have to put the cable connectors on the pins for the Wi-Fi card. The gray one goes with the white little triangle, and the black one goes with the black little triangle on the Wi-Fi card. Make sure you don't force it because you could break the little pins. After, it's very important to put the storage back in place and screw it in. So in that way, if you see so far, you have the option on there to put a longer M.2 SSD. Now it's time to put the mouse flex back on place, or the touchpad back on place, or like trackpad, whatever you want to call it. And let's start putting all the flex back on place. Let's go ahead and put the memory RAM back on place. I was able to upgrade it to 8 gigs, so feel free to do it. The other memory RAM is next to it, the little chipset that are soldered to the motherboard. Go ahead and put the connector back on place, and then the little flex coming from the monitor. Now it's time to put the battery, but first double check that to make sure that everything, all the screws are back in place. It's always good to verify, so in that way whenever you close it, you don't have to be reopening again. Let's go ahead and put the cover like paste, just to like isolate it from the heat of the little car and the chassis, so it doesn't make any contact. It's like isolation. Go ahead and put the battery back in place. Remember that you have to put back all the screws, and then you have the connector that goes into the motherboard. Now it's time to put the battery back in place. Make sure you align the connector, so in that way it's not hard for you to put it back. Go ahead and slide it with the plastic tool all the way in, and then go ahead and put the screws for the battery. Make sure you align the battery correctly and start putting all the screws back in. Now let's go ahead and check out everything that we put back on place and double check that all the screws are back in and the correct position that everything should be. That's the selection that I was talking about. Go ahead and put back the cover. Apply some pressure to be able to lock it. Once we go all around it, it is time for us to put all the screws back in place. Now it's time to put all the screws back in place and apply some pressure to the top cover, to the cover and the actual chassis. And now just go ahead and put all the screws back in place. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I make it a little bit longer because the assemble and the disassemble it. But I hope you guys enjoy it, and you feel free to leave your comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.
xlearntechnow.